On this episode of the InsurTech Geek Podcast, we're talking about data, AI, and industry change through the CIO lens with Steve Kappel, CIO of Safety National. The InsurTech Geek Podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. We'll be interviewing guests and doing deep dives into specific tech we see changing the industry. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out. Terra, this week's episode sponsor, is revolutionizing the world of workers' compensation claims and policy management. Terra's cutting-edge platform empowers insurers with comprehensive benchmarking tools, robust management systems, and an integrated ancillary services marketplace. Discover how Terra is driving innovation and efficiency in workers' comp at terra.insure. That's terra.insure. And we are back with another great episode of the InsurTech Geek Podcast. I am your host, the InsurTech Geek, James Benham. With me, our special guest, my good friend and Chief Information Officer of Safety National in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri, Steve Kappel. What's going on, Steve?
Not much, James. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Glad to have you on the show. We've known each other a long time. You've known for a long time that I'm a podcaster. It's glad to have you on and chit chat about tech, about work comp, about insurance, about all things geekery, as you know that I like and you like.
Absolutely. No, I've been waiting, James, for how long it's been since I've been invited.
Years.
I'm glad I finally made the cut.
I know I'm a terrible friend. It's yeah. Steve and I, for those of you out there in listener land, Steve and I have co-presented together at conferences. Most recent one was this year, had a great time. And we really enjoyed talking about technology around IT policy, around AI, and just the whole world. I mean, insurance is a data business. And so tech touches every corner of it as a result of it. Before we really dive into some of those topics, I always like talking about the guest because at the end of the day, this is an industry made up of people, and the people are certainly the key component. And so I always like talking about people and their background. Steve, you have a varied background before you got to safety. You really, worked in a couple of different areas, but mainly two, and really one particularly long job at CPI Corp. Now, tell everybody what because you didn't. Well, before that, let me just say, you're from St. Louis. You went to St. Louis University. You got a degree in computer science. We are fellow educational nerds. We both studied technology and software in college. You stayed there locally. I mean, you're a St. Louis guy if there ever was a St. Louis guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to tell people I'm all Billiken. I went to St. Louis University High School, the junior Billikens, and then went on to St. Louis University and became a full-fledged Billiken. But yeah, no, I love St. Louis. I've got deep roots here. Lots of family, lots of friends. My mom is one of 7 children on her side. I had 20 cousins on that side of the family alone. And I thought I had a big family until I met my wife, and her family is even bigger. Her dad is one of 11, and she has, I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say north of 50 first cousins. And like most of us are all still in the area. We talk about geometric progressions when we're talking about the amount of family we have around these days. And we've outgrown most houses. When we all try to get together, we're renting somewhere. So
no. You're renting an event center.
So, but it's great. No, I love this town. I'm never upset or feeling isolated in terms of the communities that we have available to us. I'm part of a couple different CIO groups here in town. It's just a wonderful community, and I like staying here. I like giving back to it.
That's really great. I've come to really love and appreciate it through all my visits to St. Louis to see you and see safety and hang out, and it's really, really amazing town. Of course, a really great food scene, which is really people don't typically associate going to St. Louis with the food scene. I always have a fantastic meal out whenever I go out, wherever it is. I mean, you got a lot going on there.
I'm not gonna lie, James. I mean, you come in town, sometimes you're introducing me to places I haven't found yet. So
Well, I do enjoy a good restaurant. So so let's talk about the career goal and the career aim. You study computer science, so obviously you enjoyed computers, you enjoyed software and technology. Otherwise, you wouldn't have started studying it. Like, what was the first thing? Was it gaming that attracted you to computers? Was it programming for the first time? What got you into technology?
Yeah, I mean, simply it's the latter. I joined. I went to St. Louis University to get a physics degree. That's why that was my major as a freshman. Um, it was not a large program at St. Louis University, so um, it got very hard very quickly, and I realized that as I'm studying and struggling through it, had taken a couple of programming courses along the way just as part of the normal curriculum there, and was thinking about it more and more. I was like, man, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy just like being able to solve problems with the computer. And I just started gravitating towards that. I started taking a few more classes than I needed to in computer science area while continuing my major in physics. And then junior year, I just reached that point. I started thinking about what am I really want to do now with this degree that I'm killing myself over. And I started looking at the different places I could go with it, and none of them sounded as much fun as being a software developer. And so I changed majors and went, full bore into computer science. I went on the engineering school, and really rounded out a math minor, which I basically had just by the virtue of physics to that point. And then in summer after my junior year, I landed an internship at CPI Corporation that you mentioned. And for those of you who were born in the 21st century, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But CPI Corporation was a corporation that was traded on the New York Stock Exchange, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri. Had an office downtown. We had 3 floors of manufacturing, and what we manufactured were pictures for the stores that we supported. We supported and owned and operated about at its peak over 3,500 photography studios that were stores that lived inside of Sears and inside of Walmart and inside of Babies R Us. So we did retail photography for families. It was really great. I started there. My internship was on the help desk, service desk. I was actually staging computers and getting them ready for Y2K. You remember that?
Yeah,
So
a lot of people spent a lot of companies spent a ton of money on Y2K prep, and it made a lot of partners at the big five accounting consulting firms doing all the Y2K implementation work.
So yeah, stayed on with them. Continued my internship into senior year. They knew I was a developer, so my internship turned into more of a development internship my second year, and then they liked what I was doing, so offered me full time. And then I stayed on there for a long time. Like you mentioned, I was at CPI for 14 years, started as an intern, and by the end of it, I was heading up their application development. So I had moved into a vice president role in 14 years where I had re architected and built teams to support their point of sale, their sales system, like how you take your pictures and then you sit with the parents and you make them black and white. You put them into a greeting card. You make collages out of them. So we built all of that from scratch on the .NET framework. Um, that same framework then powered all the digital manufacturing systems that we had running the manufacturing floors here in St. Louis. And we focused a lot on our web presence. I mean, this is early 2000s. We started talking about, e-commerce was what it was called back then. And so we we thought we had something. It's an interesting story of disruption, honestly, because I was there when we were making the pitches for, um, hey, we've got something here, and like we had I'd say easily 2 year head start on the Snapfishes, the Shutterflies of the world, um, and we said, hey, there's something here, and if we can invest some money into this, we could, build up the amount of storage we would need and the functionality of it. And it was met with leadership at the time of that's not us. That's not on our mission. Their mission was we sell portrait studios to moms in malls. And I think about this a lot. And had their mission been, we preserve family memories for a lifetime, that would have fit right in it. In fact, more so obviously than the model that we were following. So it was great. I'm surprised that Simon Sinek hasn't written about CPI because it's such an obvious use case, and it was
Yeah, I mean, a follow up to start with why, you should,
yeah.
yeah, it'd be a great follow up. It did give us though some amazing photographs that have continued to last through time. And for those of you who are who, for those of you who might be looking at this online, you'll see my background change in just a little bit with some examples of some photos that came from these fantastic mall studios. Of course, this is just one that I just want to mention here. But when you get the denim on denim, uh,
You got to
you
find
know,
the ones we were really proud of, James, were the ones where we had kind of the double exposure, where that was done with film. Kind of like you and your partner looking off in one direction and then looking at the camera in the other one. I mean, just some real classy stuff.
yeah. Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I got a couple here that we'll bring up. But yes, that's great. So what led you, obviously the downfall of that entire business model, led you to look for something else. How'd you land over at safety?
Yeah, so I guess I didn't even sew that up. Yeah, so CPI Corp went bankrupt in 2013 after a series of kind of uh, venture capitalists and takeovers of capital investment firms that wanted to come in and they thought they could fix it. But eventually it went bankrupt, and so I stayed on. I formed a small consulting firm with a buddy of mine. We continued to support. So there it is. We continued to support some of the e-commerce stuff that they were doing, some of the sales systems that we had written. Um, and then I found a really interesting job at the Missouri Botanical Garden, again, still here in St. Louis. And I was brought in to lead their participation in a UN sponsored project called the World Flora Online. Super cool stuff, really interesting. I was part of a consortium of about 12 other botanical gardens around the world, and we were charged with making this one-stop shop online for all flora across the entire planet. Um, it was 2013, and the due date for that project was 2020. So, not exactly the pace I was used to. Everything was a little slow. There wasn't very much demand. So, I think had I been there, started there when I was in my mid 50s, I'd probably still be there, or I'd be retired by now. But really cool stuff, really cool subject matter, amazing people. Being a part of that type of an organization, I mean, talk about giving back to the community and participating in something larger um, than the individual was had all of that. I just it just wasn't very challenging, and every time I tried to push the envelope, I kind of got met with a lot of resistance around. Um, I don't even know the right word for it. I think very corporately. I'm always trying to figure out how to squeeze every bit of efficiency and profitability out of everything I do. And that's a currency that absolutely just does not matter in that sector. And that's what I learned. So everything was more about, getting your name on publications and things like that. And I was trying to figure out how to make it the bigger, better deal all the time. So when a recruiter called with a leadership position available at an insurance company here in town that I'd never heard of, I was interested because it sounded challenging and it sounded fast paced. Um, there was a new IT leader in at the time that was very energized and ready to go, and it was a good fit. So that's how I ended up at Safety National.
Awesome. And so tell me what the job looks like today. Like what exactly, and this is what I'd love to know, because I don't think a lot of people actually know the daily life and what a CIO does. I mean, just the breadth, depth, scope, scale of that job.
Sure. And again, well, what I would say, I'd caveat it with, I think every person I've ever met in a CIO role, their job and their level of responsibility is a little different, and it depends greatly on the organization that you're working for. It's easy to understand that you're probably leading the IT uh, organization, but what is in an IT organization these days, how much influence you have outside the IT organization varies drastically. Um, and if for those of you who've looked me up or followed kind of my progression through the ranks here at Safety, you'll see CTO, VP, and CIO, and now most recently CSVP and CIO. But for a lot of that time, I've been doing the majority of the same thing, which is running the operations for an infrastructure and operations department, a software engineering group, a data management and operations organization, um, help desk, all of that type of stuff. But as I've moved into then the CIO role, that was really when I took on more department head duties. I was getting a lot more face time with our executive team and influencing decisions there. And then most recently, the move to CSVP at Safety, for example. I mean, that has less to do with the department you're in and more just to do with the people that are going to be leading an organization at a corporate level, like driving larger decisions than just at a department level. And so that was a tremendous vote of confidence. First time somebody in IT has really been put into that role. Um, and so it was, I don't know, it felt important to me, as that vote of confidence from Safety National to really understand the importance of what IT does, how integrated it's becoming with everything we do, and how we've been able to truly enable true business value over the last 10 years. So um,
Yeah,
that's really the
and
best.
it is a big deal. And obviously I've been involved with the organization quite a long time. And that to have a seat at the executive table making strategic decisions around the company, not just around technology, is a change, and it's a major. I think it's a big vote of confidence too in the future of that company and its interaction with technology, like how critical technology is to the strategy. And hey, we want to roll into XYZ lines of business. We want to roll into XYZ states. Hey, we want to expand in this area. We want to contract in this area. All of those decisions have like deep consequences in the technology department. Department. Um, it's a daunting job. I'd say, being a CTO and then obviously a CIO is a very, very difficult job, because if you do your job really, really, really well, there's absolute silence generally. And any mistake can be like catastrophic for the business, right? Like if you have any kind of downtime, it can be catastrophic for the company. If you have any kind of leak, or if you have any kind of data security issue, anything that goes on, the consequences are severe and catastrophic. If everything goes well, the engine's humming along under the hood, nice and quiet. And so I think it can be a very emotionally challenging position to be in because of that, because you've got a whole bunch of engineers keeping this, changing the wheels out on the machine sometimes while it's rolling down the road.
Ask any CIO around budget time when you're trying to to talk about how to get money for new capabilities and the things people want, and driving that true innovation and new business value. um, you got to look right back at what it costs to run the business, and nobody likes to hear how much it costs to run an IT business. And so it's so incumbent upon us to constantly be looking at the best way to do that. Are we really optimizing our costs as much as possible to make room for the new innovative stuff, and to start to show how you can self fund a lot of what we're trying to do without just constantly being you know additive. when you're trying to do new things. You can't just keep doing what you were doing forever in the same manner and expect to be able to do new things too, because we don't have infinite money, no matter how profitable we can be.
Well, let's kind of just all everyone has constrained resources, right? And you know, in technology, certainly we're often asked to do more with the same or even more with less, and which can be very challenging, in particular when you're in expansionary mode. And safety is a pretty big company now. Obviously part of Tokyo Marine, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what exactly for the uninitiated? What does Safety National do, and how big is it?
Sure. So Safety National is a large specialty commercial insurance P&C carrier. We grew up for the first probably 70 years of our existence in the excess workers' comp space. Um, about, I'd say 16 years ago, we really started branching out into more large casualty areas, looking at large deductible primary workers' compensation, and then the accompanying lines of large commercial GL, large commercial auto, and then since then we've also branched out into specialty excess and surplus insurance, where we've offered up our professional services lines, professional liability lines around like educators legal and public officials. We have a large presence in many industries, but our biggest ones are kind of healthcare, construction, um, retail, and a lot of public entities, which is where those specialty lines really came into play, um, to round that out. So we do about, I don't know, somewhere between $2 and $2.5 billion in revenue a year these days. And we write in all 50 states plus Guam, Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Um, it is we're heavily
And
regulated.
Washington D.C. So, I've been instructed to say always say and Washington D.C.
So anyway, we are large. We write very loss sensitive things. Our whole deal is our clients are those who are truly partnered in risk management for us. Um, those are our clients. Large organizations that are looking to free up some capital that they might have to spend on primary comp lines, and they want to be able to save some of that and invest it back in themselves. And in order to do that, they take on large retentions that they self-insure themselves, or large deductibles that they have to pay before we come in at very high layers. Um, but that's really the bread and butter of how we do it. We don't write high volume. We write low volume, high complexity. We have policies that span all 50 of those states. It is very large, complex, big organizations.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to the kind of the next topic here, and I again, safety is a fascinating topic and a great place to learn so much. I mean, your role touches everything from IT structure, strategy, infrastructure, cybersecurity, digital transformation. With you have when you have that big of a lens, when you're looking at that many things, what has it shown you about why innovating inside your own company matters? And then how do you try to encourage that kind of innovation at Safety National?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I think about when it comes to innovation and what I've learned at safety, especially given everything you just mentioned, um, innovation it's all about balance, and it's hard to have balance without perspective. And so understanding all of the different areas you just mentioned, as well as then the entirety of kind of what the business is, you know, you can't spend all your time on technology driven R&D projects, and you also can't spend all your time on just focusing on business capabilities and adding functionality and uh, ignore technical progress in IT and ignore security and privacy needs and the things that you've got to do to stay on top of the products you already own. Um, you know, Another thing is that I've learned that success will breed complacency, and that's both on the business side and the IT side. I've been shocked more times than I can count, in talking with business users, and they walk me through a process that we've had here. And, it is not the end of the world, but it's just so easily solved or automated, or there's an easier way to do it. But it's just like, it's fine, and it's like, it's fine. This isn't going to keep us from making our, getting our bonuses. This is, it's fine. I'm happy to do this. I did it yesterday. And so you've got to start really encouraging that type of innovation. And then to the second part of your question, I guess that's really what we try to do here every day is we challenge, we empower people at different levels, whether you're a subject matter expert, just an end user on the team, whether you're a product owner, a product manager, and somebody in architecture, you're empowered to challenge the status quo at all times and think of, is there a better way to do this? We made a large safe transformation over the last couple of years in terms of the scaled agile framework for enterprise. It's just been a tremendous fit for us, both, as an organization. It's not just limited to how our agile teams work and how we deliver things in IT. It's also about the business understanding how to be agile as well, and how they can continue to challenge that status quo, and how they can continue to innovate, how they need to think about their business in terms of the goals they want to set for themselves in the next 3, 6, 12 months. But so, in agile team meetings and backlog refinements, product road mapping, where the business is truly involved, that's where we try to encourage innovation, just on every day. What's gonna move the needle the most for the cheapest amount in the shortest amount of time? Another thing that we've done recently was we stood up our business architecture department, quite honestly, which does not report to IT, but is instrumental in. I like to when I've talked about this a lot internally about our safe transformation, and we spent a lot of time on the delivery and the agile teams within IT for a long time. That was kind of the first 12 months. And so I refer to that as kind of like the engine, or think about it as a, the rifle that we've now built to be very precise and predictable in terms of, you're going to get the same result now. When you ask for something, we say we're going to do it. We're going to be predictable and accountable on those types of things. Versus now on the business side, we got to know that we're pointing the gun on the bullseye and not off target, And so bringing that accuracy back in for our investments to use this now well-oiled machine and get those predictable results, let's make sure we're pointed at the right thing. And that's where we've really encouraged that type of innovation on the business side, to really think about not just what's top of mind today, but have a plan. What are we really trying to get to? How are we trying to improve the operations in your area in the next, 12 months? And let's keep those goals in front of us and make sure they're aligned to higher level corporate goals. And then the last thing I would say is we do have a couple of very specific innovation led events that we put on every year here at Safety National. One is at a corporate level. We had an innovation committee that had started the idea of Spark Tank, which is just a blatant ripoff of Shark Tank. But the idea was that people could propose new ideas and try to get them, funded or approved by executives who would say, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's kind of bump this up the list a little bit and put a little resource behind it and see what happens. And so we've changed that a little in recent years to now feed into our more technology-based innovation conference that we have each year called Evolve. And we take, 3 mornings out of the year to basically share what we're doing with each other. Take time to really come up with new ideas, and we have idea jams, and it all culminates with kind of the capstone event of that conference every year is Code Wars, which is our internal hackathon. And so recently, or maybe it's just in this last year, the winning idea from Spark Tank is then what teams that participate in Code Wars then actually try to produce something for. So they take the idea that got executive or Shark approval, in Spark Tank and actually get to take a week to try to build something that accomplishes what that was set out to do. So it's been great. I mean, the innovation in safety has really taken off in the last 5 to 7 years.
Yes, it has. Yeah, but it starts with, first you mentioned it a couple minutes ago when you're talking about like it starts with saying there's got to be a better way, right? Like this, it starts with like a statement, like there's got to be a better way. Like no matter how we've done it, we have to constantly question and evaluate all of our processes, the way that we underwrite policies, the way that we adjudicate claims, the way that we manage finances, the way that we collect payments, the way that we issue payments, the way that we integrate with our vendors, the way we integrate with our TPAs, the way we integrate with our regulatory partners, like all of that, you have to question all of it like all the time, you know? And I'd say you also made a statement that I thought was really, really salient that I'm going to summarize it though, but being profitable, making money, it almost makes you very comfortable, and comfort can be the enemy of really progressing to that next level, because you get to a stage where things are going pretty well, and things have gone very well, right? And for a lot of insurance companies, things end up going pretty well. You have the thing that most businesses want: recurring revenue, right? Premium comes every year, and if your outgo exceeds your income, you know, your upkeep is not your downfall. Well, it depends. If your outgo does not exceed your income, I mean, if your outgo does not exceed your income, then your upkeep is not your downfall, and then things are pretty good because you can make money and you can have a profitable venture. But then it can kind of make you a little complacent. You step back and say, okay, we survived those early hard years. Okay, we survived the Great Recession. Okay, we survived COVID. Okay, we survived whatever the latest trauma is. And then I think sometimes people, I think we just get tired, right? And we want some predictability. But I think that's part of what a great CIO and a great technology arm and really great company leadership, and you do have great company leadership, says is, hey, look, how do we get 1% better every day? Every day. Or to quote my favorite book, 2 Second Lean, which studied the guy who wrote 2 Second Lean went to Japan and studied Toyota. And he read Toyota Way, went there and studied Toyota, met with the Japanese. Of course, they pioneered lean for a long time. And then he brought it back to his manufacturing company, and then he perfected it through 1% improvements, through 2-second improvements every day. And he still does 2-second improvements every day. He still posts videos of improvements they find. And you'd think that if there's a guy that has squeezed every inefficiency out of his process, it's that guy. And he's still publishing videos about the things that he's improving around the office in his house. After a decade of doing it, he's still finding waste, because it turns out humans are 24/7 waste generators. And waste waste kind of creeps into our process, doesn't it? Like it gets introduced, and it gets introduced as a temporary Excel spreadsheet that we're only going to fill out and model the prototype this one time, and then it turns into a permanent workflow item, right?
The old MVP. It's all you ever end up getting sometimes, because that's the whole point. Sometimes it does it, and then you got a little technical debt.
Yeah, MVPs turn into technical debt all the time because you're like, okay, let's just do a prototype. I always kind of cringe at prototype, because generally when people mean prototype is that I want it to be just as reliable as that thing that's in production, but I want it to be delivered in 80% less time.
With all those same non-functional requirements, it's got to be available, it's got to be secure, it's got to be performant, it's got to be resilient.
Has to be load tested, scale tested. It's got to be, completely secure, pen tested. As all of that has to happen. And so that's why I almost think that there aren't prototypes. There's just V1s, because no
That's
one
right.
really, in insurance, especially because the consequences are so severe if there's mistakes, there's really no such thing as a prototype in insurance. There's just a V1.
Yeah.
And
There definitely shouldn't be a prototype in production.
no,
Under that definition.
no, it shouldn't, because everything in production, this is the challenge, especially again in insurance, where you have a lot of cyber risk, you have a lot of financial transactional risk, you've got you're making promises and commitments to your customers with the rating engines and algorithms that you might have to own up to for 80 years. I mean, think about that, right? Like, so you're making 80, 100-year commitments every day by writing policies. And I think this is something that has to really, you got to say, okay, well, that means everything's got to be fairly bulletproof before it goes into prod. We just got to chop down what V1 is. We got to chop down to the bare minimum functionality, knowing that it's got to be load tested, scale tested, security tested, pen tested, all of those things. It has to go live, and then it's got to have unit tests, and it has to have regression testing and automation, and all the math formulas have to be verified. We have to have continuous QA audits. We've got to have continuous integration, continuous deployment, and the deployment pipeline has to be built for it. And then we have to have 4 environments for everything we built, right? Dev, test, QA, prod. I mean, I think that's the flip side of it. I'm using a new product now called V0 that I really like, and it allows you to generate an interactive Next.js, React, JavaScript, and it's true prototypes. There's no database behind it, so it's just an interactive. It has dummy data that it loads in an array, like we used to code back in the day, where you like loaded an array in the code. And what I like about it is it allows you in like minutes to AI generate a prototype, like an actual prototype, just like no data, no connection behind it, and then play with it so that you can try and get users. Do you find that it's hard to get users to really look at mock-ups and screenshots, and like you end up getting a lot of the feedback after you go live?
Oh, 100%. We've been fighting with this since day one. And it's not localized, just it's not a safety national problem. I fought with it at CPI too. Um, Honestly, at CPI, the first thing that really gave us a little bit of avenue to do that quickly and still have it usable was Windows Presentation Foundation. I mean, it was very easy to quickly spin up UI and have it actually be clickable. It wasn't super easy, but it was at least a step in the right direction. And we built something out that you could it was almost declarative to build functional prototypes. You could very quickly create a working clickable user interface. It didn't have anything behind it, but you could mock it through, which was very helpful in getting that in, because everybody's like that. That's why they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. I mean, if you explain something, people are going to interpret it differently, and they're going to have a different picture in their head than the person sitting next to them. I mean, by really drawing it out, pictures have been I don't know. That's one of the things I think that is part of my success here is, you know, over the course of a core systems replacement that I was brought in to help lead in like the mid teens, 20 teens. Um, that's all I did. I just tried to close that gap and explain between business and IT what was actually happening, between business and vendors what's happening, and clearing up confusion, and between vendors and IT. It's just constantly closing those gaps and blurring those lines between these old traditional silos. That's all I did, and that's what I continue to do, is try to blur that line between business and IT as IT becomes just embedded everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now you're also on Safety National's operations committee, and you're on Tokyo Marine's global IT committee. Those bring together experts from across these really large enterprises. How has that played in? What's been the value there, and how has that shaped the way you think about the role of tech in business?
You said operations committee, right? As well?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. That's the operations committee, that actually was started while I was here. I was not on it to start with. But that came out of a large consulting engagement that we did here with a consulting firm, that we were just trying to basically do a business process management exercise, identify our weak points. And there was a binder about this thick that came out of it. And, at the time, we were in a core systems replacement mode. We knew we needed to do something differently, and that a whole lot of stuff got thrown into, well, we'll fix it in the core systems replacement project. But also born out of that was this operations committee, whose charge was to follow up on a lot of the pain points that came out of this discussion, really figure it out. Like, what are we doing? And so ultimately now, I don't know, oh man, I almost did the thing that the kids are doing these days that drives me nuts. I said I was going 7, 8. I wasn't 6, 7, but but I have too many teenagers, man. Way too many teenagers. Anyway, but so about 7 or 8 years ago, this was formed, and since then, we are really just charged with helping the COO, manage the efficient operations of our organization. And part of that now is, it's learning, having a wider perspective. It's people who are on this committee are expected to think outside of their individual areas and think more broadly about the operations of the company as a whole, understand that things in their area might not be as important as things in other areas, and help guide those decisions in terms of our lean portfolio management process to really make sure that we are focused. Again, we're aiming that rifle at the bullseye. Because that's what it's about. I mean, technology is about delivering value. It's not about chasing that next shiny object. It's, our responsibility to kind of really understand new technologies, so that we know where we can apply the new shiny object if we see a good opportunity for it. But it is about delivering value, and that's what the OC has really provided. And I think it also has really helped by always having an IT leader, in a role on the OC. I think it's really helped other leaders in the organization understand what all we're doing, so that they don't, otherwise it's a what have you done for me lately kind of relationship. But having people understand the breadth that we're supporting and how we get the work we do and how we accomplish it, has been a really big help to the organization. From a global standpoint, yeah, Tokyo Marine, they acquired Delphi Financial Group in 2012. So Safety National is owned by Delphi Financial Group, and then Tokyo Marine owns Delphi Financial Group in 2012. So I think the GITC started around 2014, right when I started, but I wasn't involved at that point. I think I started attending in around 2017, 2018, maybe. So I'm actually one of the longer tenured members now on the GITC, but it is a tremendous resource, not just for myself, but for the global group. We're advisory to our global CITO on basically how best to operate and or support IT across 70 different insurance companies that are within the group. Myself and about 7 other CIOs from the larger insurance organizations, we are the ones who sit on this committee. We talk about, how do we identify synergies, without removing the independence and the federated model that has served us well so far. It is just a tremendous group of CIOs. We're all tackling similar issues. We're in similar industries. Well, I mean, we're in the same industry, but similar lines of business. Everyone bends over backwards if you ask for help. I've always been very shocked and impressed with that group, just because it'd be so easy for a group like that to be just all posturing and territorial and defensive. But this group, we provide the most value to each other in this group when we are just willing to show our warts and ask for help from one another, and you will always find it there. It's just been a tremendous experience for me, and I'm always proud of that when anybody asks me about the global IT.
Yeah, it's something that works. I mean, people like to razz on committees, right? But these two, and I've seen them work. You see them work. You're a member of them. I've only gotten to be a witness to the outcome, right? But they're functional. Like, they work. They actually help the members. They help the member companies and the member people. So I think it's important for others to note that you can have successful committees. It's just how you form them and how you run them. It's all in the operations of those committees. So I certainly not a believer in having too many committees, because then you get bogged down in too many meetings all the time. But it's it can be really quite remarkable how the information sharing can help all the people get better. So that's awesome. Well, Steve, we're at time. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and for sharing your best practices, talking about a really fascinating career and certainly a great company that you work for. So thank you for coming on the InsurTech Geek.
No, my pleasure, James. Always a pleasure, and thanks for having me.
And thank you in listener land coming on and tuning in to Geek Out, our interview with Steve Kappel, the CIO from Safety National. See you next time.
The InsurTech Geek podcast is all about technology that's transforming and disrupting the insurance world. I've been your host, James Benham. That's jamesbenham.com, with co-host Rob Galbraith at endofinsurance.com. We're taking you on a journey through insurance tech, so enjoy the ride and geek out.